Similar to the Mauryan Empire, the Gupta Empire emerged along the Ganges and the Indus rivers, providing the people of the Gupta Empire with fertile soil for agriculture and expansion. Chandragupta, the founder of the Gupta Empire, modeled his rulings off of the first Mauryan king. The both kings utilized agriculture as a key for expansion and creating social classes in a society. With the Gupta Empire lying along the Ganges, it provided a source of irrigation due to Gupta's administration to construct aqueducts, dams, and canals in order for farmers to become prosperous when farming crops such as rice, wheat, and millet. These crops were important to the Indian lifestyle, providing them with nutrients and securing them from a point of famine. The climate of India permitted agriculture and farming to become such a prominent characteristic in the development of the Gupta Empire. The monsoons allowed the farmers not only to harvest just once, but twice a year, multiplying the amount of crops a farmer could produce. The development of agriculture during the Gupta Empire allowed trading and an exportation of goods to flourish. These exportations included items such as rice and millet and simple crafts. As farming began to become a way for the Gupta Empire to grow into a bountiful place to live, the societies began to develop into complex societies that needed a more advanced way of organizing its people. In local villages, a headman and a council of elders managed the villages, while the guilds controlled the trade. The guilds were men that controlled one trade in a province and watched the exports that came in and out of the Gupta Empire. They later became politically influential when the militias were called upon by the ruler during the times of war. The militias helped maintain security throughout the borders, but they also protected traders from attacks due from bandits or pirates. During the time of the Gupta Empire, women's social status decreased due to the rules of women going from providing most of the food to maintaining and obeying whatever a man would command. Women's equality for the most part went extinct, removing them from having the right to own property, maintain roles in government positions, and the right to inherit property. Not only were women downgraded from men, but they were also placed into the lowest class, known as the Shudra. Agriculture was the primary source and livelihood of most of all the Mauryan Indians. Maurya's agriculture was dominated by small landlords. Slaves and Sudras helped to maintain the lands. It helped the empire to grow and prosper for several years. It gave wealth to the king and the kingdoms. It added to the prestige and power of the great Mauryan Empire. The caste system of the Mauryan Empire showed the most important rankings of different professions within the people. From the 7 levels in the caste system, 3 levels involved being a farmer, shepherd, or an artisan. Second, from the top of the caste system were the farmers. Farmers had the privilege of being exempted from fighting in wars, but farmers had the obligation to pay a tax of 25%. Next, third, within the caste system, shepherds shared the rank with the other animal-involved activities like trappers, hunters, and pest controllers. Following the shepherds were the artisans in the 4th rank. Artisans included armorers, shipbuilders, implement markers, and other crafts and industries. They were also tax exempted. In addition, some artisans like shipbuilders, weapon makers, and armorers were made to work for the state in exchange for salaries paid by the treasury. The Qin was the first dynasty outside the Warring States period in China. During the rule of the Qin, there were 4 main social classes: the nobles, the artisans, the poor, and the slaves. The nobles were either born into their power or promoted to their position by the emperor. The artisans were craftsmen who could have land privileges or power because they had amassed money. The poor were low-class people who were taxed heavily and neglected by the rich and the artisans. The poor oftentimes were farmers or merchants. The Qin Emperor Xin Huangdi often manipulated social classes by taxing certain people heavily, and in building the Great Wall of China, he cut off a popular trade route for merchants. The Han Dynasty later came into power and changed a lot of the harsh legalist ways by lowering taxes, making food surpluses, and by distributing the majority of the land to the lower class. This led to economic growth and loyalty to the dynasty. It was only until they converted back to the ways of the Qin, in which they neglected some classes, and the Han fell. The Roman Empire was founded around 27 BC by the Roman Emperor Augustus. The class systems in Rome were very defined. The higher classes were the senatorial class and the equestrian class. The senatorial class was made up of the political figures and their families. There also was some commercial farming around this time, but most of the farming was subsistence farming, and the people that mainly farmed were the peasants. Even though subsistence farming was a part of Rome's wealth, the leaders of Rome and the way the social classes were set up made a perfect setting for growth of the empire and the growth of the wealth of the empire and of the economy. The Roman Empire was founded around 27 BC by the Roman Empire Augustus. The class systems in Rome were very defined. The higher classes were the senatorial class and the equestrian class. The senatorial class was made up of the political figures and their families. There also was some commercial farming around this time, but most of the farming was subsistence farming, and the people that mainly farmed were the peasants. Even though subsistence farming was a part of Rome's wealth, the leaders of Rome and the way the social classes were set up made a perfect setting for growth of the empire and the growth of the wealth of the empire and of the economy. The class system was very established in Greece. The higher class was the people of Athens, then the middle class was the metics, and the lower class was the freedmen, and below them was the slaves. The people of Athens were the higher class because the people of Athens owned land and interacted within the city. The metics were the next level of society that were the people of Greece that were not members of the society of Athens. Then the freedmen and the slaves were the lowest. Since the land in Greece was not very good for farming, there was not a large presence of making money from farming. The empire grew because of the working class system and the little trade in farming.